people not doing enough research, right? And never comparing something to something else. Let me explain what I mean. As human beings, we are constantly comparing something to something else. So, for instance, would you say I'm tall?
Well, compared to what?
Exactly. When you say somebody is short, compared, would you say a baby is short?
No.
Why not? Are they not short? But they are short now. What? Because they are not in their final form, right? So when you even say something like someone is short, you realize what you're actually saying is the person is shorter than average, right? Everything is a comparison to something else. This is where we are introduced to the concept of context. Have you ever heard that word before? Context is content with an X, not an N. Because every story you tell has two things: content and context. The content is what is in the story. The context is everything else around it, right? So if you tell me that person is short, that's the content of the text. See that girl, say as is short, right? That was your text. The content of your text was, look, she's short, right? The context is she's shorter than average. So if somebody sent you a text and you say, see as that girl, see as she's short, and the girl is taller than me, what will you respond? No, I'm serious, what will you respond? You forget your glasses, it's all well with you, you don't chop. I hope all is well at home. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because, wait, hold on. Because your context and the content don't match, right? So in whatever story you're telling, however you want to do it, public speaking, music writing, article, short story, film, yes? Never forget your context in writing, right? Or in telling your story. An example is, who likes, I don't even know, some of you look awful young. Who's ever seen a romantic comedy or a romantic movie? Like especially an American or a Korean one, right? So you know that shorthand for romance where they have the guy and the girl kissing in the rain. You know that short? There is a shorthand for romance, Abi? Here is a shorthand for pneumonia. You have to go and kiss in a cold with cashew. Right? Because in that context, right? Because first of all, even in Nigeria, kissing outside is a problem, correct? People are kissing outside, they're like, what's wrong with these people now? You don't go out. Because of the context, right? But for the Americans, that's a shorthand context, right? So one point I always make is be very careful who you are, not careful, be very aware of who you are talking to. It's not just the content of what you are saying, it's the context in which you are saying it, right? Have you ever seen that weird thing where a child is with a mother, then the child runs into the road, you hear car horn, the mother pulls the child back, right? And the mother is scared, right? Then the mother hits the child. Do you realize that there's no logic in that? You were scared that the child will get hurt, so you hurt the child. You understand the lack of logic, right? But the mother is operating out of fear. Yes? So what has the child learned in that context? Let me rephrase this. At the end of that exchange, is the child more afraid of the car or their mother? So let me answer it very clearly with about 25 years of psychology behind it. The child ends up more afraid of their mother than the car. They're more afraid of their mother's disapproval. The mother is hoping that next time, if you see motor, you will not go there. And if the child does it, it's not because they're afraid of cars. It's because they're afraid of their mother. So children like that, if you do not deliberately detach the child from you, when the child grows up or when the mother is no longer available, we're supposed to hold that child back now. They never learn to be afraid of cars. Again, the context around the event. People of my generation were raised on fear. So by the time your parents flog you 5 times for not clearing the parlor, you clear the parlor, right? But you didn't learn to be clean. You learned not to get whooped. Abi? So when you now finally get your own apartment, listen, nobody go flog me. I dey sleep for parlor this whole week. Nothing dey happen. Abi? Right? Because that's what tends to happen now, because I'm proving that I'm independent now. Yes? My point is this. Always understand the context. It's not just the thing. It's the why of the thing and where does the thing live. Does that make any sense? Okay, let's move on to the next big thing. My assumption is most of you are here because you have 1 or 2 stories to tell, correct? Yes? So let me ask you a question. Why? Why should anybody care what you have to say? I have job jam question, Abi. So the things that you listen to, the things that you watch, right? The TED Talks, the speeches you listen to, the public speakers you listen to, the films you watch, the music you listen to. The question is why? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, do you know why? Does that make any sense? Right? Because the transition from childhood to adulthood is when you were a child, you did what they told you to do. Then as an adult, you decide what you are going to do, right? Because I'm flipping it around and saying, if you are going to create something, whatever it might be, however you want to put your voice out there, right? You have to understand why people are listening before you talk. Does that make any sense? You have to know what they are looking for, right? Have you ever been stressed out and you went to whatever, social media, Spotify, whatever it is, to go find either a podcast or a playlist or motivational music or motivational, some people use sermons, some people use... Has anybody ever done that? Let me see your hands if you've done that. Exactly. When you went there, you knew what you were looking for, correct? So if you went there and you clicked on a speech to help you in your darkest hour, and you press play, and it's Tinubu reading the budget for last year, how will you feel? But you get what I'm saying? Because you know what you were looking for. You came here looking for something specific. Does that make any sense? Okay, I'm going to move on to my next point. Anybody have any question about that point? I've spoken about context and content. Don't just worry about the thing you have to say or the vessel. Also be aware of how it will be received and where you're placed in it, right? The audience you're talking to, right? The second thing, be very clear why anybody should listen to you. Be very clear. Who are the people you are talking to? What sort of people? And give them a reason to listen. Here's the most important thing in finding your voice. Now let me be very clear. I'm speaking about finding your voice from an artistic point of view. What it means in an artistic context is when you start something, right? You start it because you are inspired by other people. If you were a singer, you started by singing other people's songs, right? If you're a writer, you usually started by reading other people's work, right? And you try to emulate those people's work. You started writing down the lyrics of other people's songs before you learned how to write songs, right? You started by copying somebody. So to find your own voice, you first have to go through the imitation phase. That's normal. I know there are people who are afraid of public speaking. I used to be terrified of it, right? People who are afraid of public speaking, listen, if it's about something you care about, yes, it's not that hard. Here's what it is. Just split it into 4 things. Yes? Tell me how things are right now. Don't sugarcoat it. Just tell me how things are. Yes? Tell me how things should be. Yes? Or how things can be. Tell me what I can do to turn B to A, then tell me why I should care. The end. So they say, come and do a speech on Nigeria's economy. Yes? Number 1, I will tell you how horrible the economy is. Yes? But I don't need to tell you, all of us, they feel Abi. Number 2, I will tell you how it could be. But I also have to be knowledgeable, not just how I feel. It's not a fantasy. I will tell you how it could be. If we had done this, we would have been here. If we do this, we can go here, right? Then I will tell you what you can do. And I will tell you, listen, all you have to do to help the economy, right, is stop buying imported spaghetti and buy only golden penny and Honeywell. Buy only things that are made here. I will give you a list of things that you buy and the alternative, right? And then I end with why you should care. I will tell you where things will be in the next 18 months if you don't do that. Speech finished. Nothing special beyond that. Do you understand what I'm saying? Take them as a bonus, right? Anything you have to write a report, a speech, you want to talk to people about something that you want to advocate for something, that's the easiest way. Just tell me how it is. Tell me how it could be. Tell me what the person you are talking to can do about it and why they should care. You are done. By the way, that applies to almost every story ever. Right? But now let's talk about clarity. When I first came to Lagos, I made the singular misfortune of asking one guy on Allen for address to somewhere. Description, bros, you know this place? He said, I know now. So when you walk out like this, you see that tree, Nobia. When you reach that tree, they go. You see that blue church after the tree? Yes, Nobia. After you pass that blue church, you see one man with a fire car. When you reach there, turn right. Okay. As you go down that right like this, you will see one church. Yes, Nobia. When you pass the church, do you realize how many landmarks he gave me? So when I now got to the blue church, I was not like blue house. I was like, wait, is this where I turn? Oh. Have you never met those people when you ask what's the time? And they tell you 17 minutes to 3:30. And you're like, wait, so what is the time? Right? You're like, wait, what are we talking about? All of us are kind of like that. I beg, let me bring that thing where they on top of that place. Which thing? Which place? All of us are slightly like that. Right? So if you're telling a story, you have to work towards absolute clarity. If you enter my room, yes, on the pillow, on the left side, the pillow that is under the curtain, lift it, my phone is under, bring it for me. Do you understand? Let me tell you when I knew I was terrible at this. I started directing multicam directing. Let me explain what it means. It means I'm in the control room. The actors are probably as far as outside. I can just see them on the monitors. I can talk to my assistant director on a mic. On that same mic, there are 12 other people talking to me. Lighting, production, whatever. 12 people in my ear. All talking sometimes at the same time. And I say, hey, George, are you on the floor? Yes. Tell the actor to stand there. He's on set with the actor, has a mic. Where? That place now is blocking the light. There are 40 lights. Which lights? Do you understand what I mean? I quickly started learning to say, all right, Harry, stand, face the camera, look at me. Yes. Lift your left hand. Yes. Put it down 45 degrees. You see that light you're pointing at? Yes. Adjust it. Do you understand? But you have to be very clear. And often we underestimate how imprecise we are. Because I'm surprised how many adults don't know the difference between left and right. I'm not dissing, I'm just saying. Some people are actually directionally challenged. My wife is like that. If you follow her somewhere, you will lose. Guaranteed. Guaranteed you will lose. Do you understand? I know people that my age, if I tell them left or right, they have to do their hand like this. Did you ever learn that thing? Yeah. When you do your hands, then the hand that forms the L, that's your left. So the other one is your right. Happens, right? So understand where you have your own challenges in clarity. Okay, one more thing. We've talked about context, we've talked about this, we've talked about that. One of the things I want to go back and hammer on again is this: the why you tell your story and the response you want from whoever you are telling your story to, right? Response, not reaction. The clapping is nice. What do you want them to do? Right? How do I phrase this delicately? I will go back to the term I used before. Therefore, don't be a victim. The whole point of telling your story is not to get sympathy for you, is to get action for somebody that you will never meet. That's something you have to make peace with. Think about it. Even if you write a film, are you going to be in every cinema? where they show it. Speaking of clarity, you realize that there will be no point where you can explain to the audience. No, be so I write about now the director change up. You realize you will never have it. If you're not clear, you're not clear. The end. Do you get what I'm saying? But the question is, what is the response you want? So, example, if you write a horror film, and first of all, I was about to say 10-year-old kids. I'm like, why are 10-year-old kids watching a horror film? But if you write a horror film and people are watching it and laughing, you have failed. I don't care how good the lighting is, the acting is great. You understand what I'm saying? It's very nice, the music is wonderful, but people are laughing in the cinema. You have failed. Right? If you write a romance and nobody leaves that cinema and calls their boyfriend or their husband and wife, you have failed. Abi? If you write a film about, the struggles and the joys of a sibling, brother and sister, and nobody calls their brother or their sister after, no work done. Right? All the things put together, the most important thing is don't tell your story for yourself. Yes? Don't tell it for you. Maybe the first few times you tell it is you working your way through it. That's fine. But your story is not for you. Okay, let me now be gentle with this other part, because I have to explain to you why your story is not for you. Because honestly, to a large percentage, nobody cares about your story. Let me explain. They care about how your story affects their story, right? So a lot of times your story reminds other people with similar stories that they are not alone, right? So your story is just half of it. Your story is not the full thing. So don't treat your story like it's the full thing. Does that make any sense? It is half. It's about how your story will impact somebody else's story. And understand, you may never get the chance to meet that person. So be very clear, the what and the why, right? Okay, so here's the thing about stories. The fact that somebody told you a story. Let me tell you how the human brain works. You realize that the human brain doesn't know the difference between the truth and a lie, right? You know your brain doesn't process. Your brain just processes data, full stop. It's why you get so angry when you find out somebody lied to you. Because your brain programs both the exact same. Right? It's just data. What is important is data for what? So let me give you an illustration. If you asked me, is this my trouser fine? And I tell you yes. Then later, you see me texting our friend and I say, see that and wore trouser. Don't mind that. Will you be angry?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Talk now, will you be angry? Okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is we are breaking bottle, and 1 is just, okay, no wala, where will you be?
3, 4, 5.
Okay. If the exact same thing you say, this my trousers are fine, I say, yeah, you go out. Then before you reach 2 steps, somebody stops you and say, sister, you know, say your trousers are tear reach ground. Would it be the same level of anger? The first one is a difference of opinion. The second one is you deliberately did something that will cause me embarrassment. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right? You will definitely react stronger for the second. I'm taking it back to what I just said before. Understanding that you're half. Because I presented the same first half but a different second half. Right? It's always about how your half intersects with the other person's half. So that's why it brings us to the last thing that I'm going to say. Expect to be misunderstood. The fact that you told the story does not mean that they will receive it in the same spirit that you told it. Abi? Yes. The same thing that inspires some people to do good is the same thing that will inspire some people to do wala. Abi? Yes. You realize that in America, there were lots of people who defended slavery with the Bible, right?
Yeah.
Heavily. The question is, you are not, so I just want to point out and prepare you. I'm already speaking to you as if you will successfully tell your story and lots of people will hear it. So I'm preparing you. Some people will mishear it. And there's nothing you can do about that. Which is also why I say clarity. If you were very clear in the first place, because it's not your job to defend somebody's perception of your work. Does that make sense? It's not your job. Your job is to know what story you're sharing. Yes, be clear about it. Understand the context of who you are speaking to. Understand your content, what it is you have to say. Be as clear as possible. Think about the response that you want. Design it for the response that you want. And your job is done. Right? Because I've seen too many people, not too many, I'll be brutally honest, in my career, I have seen more people suffer, I've seen more people fail from success than actually failing. I know that sounds weird, but yes, they went out, they did something, they got a result that was very different from what they wanted. Let me rephrase it for you. Let me give you a solid example. Solid example, I'll probably close on this. How many of you can cook? I just asked if you can cook. Okay. How many of you think you can cook very well? Yes, you are ready, Abby? So imagine one day you cooked something. You've been cooking for people, though. You've been cooking for people since. They don't get wahala. One day you cook something and you don't like it. As in, you're like, this one no work at all. This one no follow. You want to go and put it in the back of the fridge. Or you put it somewhere that, when I come back, I go remix them. You understand? Then suddenly, everybody in the house is like, which time you cook this thing, huh? You're like, where will I see this thing? We sell for back of fridge. Oh, this is the best thing when you don't cook since now. Do you know how that thing is going to mess with your head? Because you're going to be like, wait. So one, does that mean these people have been lying since when they said I could cook before? Now this one, how? So wait, if these people are the ones that told me that I can cook, am I sure I can cook? Because it's like these people don't know anything. Do you get what I'm saying? People don't hardly ever think about it. I have like almost 8 names right now of people whose careers ended because one, they put out something that was misinterpreted. And everybody said, do more of this. This thing that was misinterpreted, do it like this from now on, we will all make money. And the person was now torn between, no, but that's not what I meant, versus we are seeing money. Do you understand what I mean? I've seen people who have put out stuff they thought was horrible, and everybody says, this is your best work ever. And they now got frozen. They couldn't put out any work anymore because they were now, every time they were trying to work, you heard it saying this, you heard it saying. I've seen people who get given both offers, right? So, the most important thing, as I said just now, is if you can string together all the things we just spoke on, context, all that, clarity. Please note I'm speaking very broadly in terms of any form of storytelling. Whether you write music, you write scripts, articles, short stories, you're a public speaker, right? Be very clear on the things that we've spoken about. Drill down, and I don't see how you can fail. In the absence of any questions, I will be happy to bid you goodbye.